Have you ever wondered what happens when the quest for perfection goes a little too far? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating cautionary tale from the architects of the Universal Library. It's all about a being driven by one single goal, to create a universe of perfect, absolute order. But, as we're about to find out, sometimes that path to perfection leads straight to total ruin.
And that's really the core question of our explainer today, one that echoes from this ancient story right into our own modern world. Seriously, what is the true price of perfect control? All right, so let's meet the tragic hero of our story, this spirit of infinite order. Now, this wasn't just some librarian or a simple record keeper. No, think of it as the living, breathing embodiment of structure itself, a relentless, personified drive to capture, control, and file away every single piece of reality. It's one half of this eternal, primordial conflict, and its obsession is its entire reason for being.
So, what was this spirit actually trying to achieve? What was its endgame? Let's take a look at the dream that fueled its very existence.
It really all boils down to this one singular, obsessive ambition. The spirit was driven by a core belief. If it could just gather and catalog everything, every scroll, every whisper, every tiny fragment of data, it could achieve ultimate control. For the spirit, absolute knowledge wasn't just about being smart, it was the only real path to total dominance.
And when you look at its vision for that reality, well, it's actually pretty chilling. Imagine a universe with zero surprises. Every single thought you have is perfectly filed away. Every action is already predetermined. All ambiguity, all gray areas, gone, eliminated. And truth isn't something you discover, it's ontologically anchored, which is a fancy way of saying it's locked down, permanent, and absolutely unchangeable.
And this phrase right here, it just sums it all up perfectly. The goal wasn't just to be organized. It was to create a world of perfected predictability. A reality so completely understood that it could be controlled, flawlessly, forever. Okay, but every perfect plan has a flaw, right? And this is where we start to see the first cracks forming in this grand design. You see, the spirit of order had a nemesis, and their relationship had this fatal built-in flaw.
You know, in its own mind, the spirit of order was the hero, the polar opposite of its chaotic counterpart, the spirit of primal discord. But the source texts reveal this cruel paradox of interdependence. The truth is, they needed each other, but in the most destructive way you can imagine, locked together in this eternal tension.
And his chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. For every single action order took, discord had an equal and opposite reaction. Order's meticulous cataloging, that just became the fuel for discord's fire. Order's goal to build this grand totality of wisdom, well, that just created the biggest, most perfect target for discord to completely unravel. And this quote just drives the point home. It's a staggering irony, isn't it? The very act of creating this perfect, centralized library of all knowledge was, at the same time, creating the perfect conditions for its own total annihilation.
But the problem wasn't just its relationship with its enemy. No, the weakness was literally baked into the architecture of its creation.
Let's just walk through how this vulnerability was built right into the system. So, step one, the mandate. Absolutely no randomness, no systemic noise. That sounds efficient, but the consequence was a system of extreme structural rigidity. Think of it like a piece of glass, super strong, but with zero flex. That leads to the fatal flaw. With no flexibility, there was no shadow, no hidden partitions or backups to protect information if the system was ever breached. And the outcome? It was all or nothing. The library couldn't be partially damaged, it could only be totally erased.
So you have this paradoxical enemy in this fatally flawed architecture. It's a powder keg just waiting for a match. And this is the final act, where all of these fatal flaws collide in one cataclysmic event.
It all kicks off with something that should never have happened, a ritual of forbidden logic. This ritual forcibly merged the two opposing spirits, order and discord, into one single monstrous being.
And here's the catastrophic downward spiral that followed. Right after the fusion, the order half of this new creature immediately tries to fulfill its lifelong ambition. It wants to use this powerful tool of essence absorption to know everything, to become the smartest being in existence. But here's the twist. The discord half subverts that drive, pivoting the goal from knowing everything to making everyone else forget everything. And with that single, terrifying change in purpose, the universal undoing was unleashed.
So in the end, the very thing that defined the spirit, Its all-consuming ego, its insatiable desire for knowledge, that became the very engine of its own destruction. Its greatest ambition was hijacked and turned into a weapon of absolute oblivion.
So, after all that ruin, what are we supposed to take away from this? What's the lasting lesson that this story leaves for us? It really boils down to this one stark warning: the demand for absolute control, for a perfectly predictable system with zero margin for error or chaos. It doesn't create strength. It creates the perfect conditions for a total catastrophic collapse. Rigidity is just fragility in disguise.
And that leaves us with one final thought, something to really chew on. As we build our own universal libraries, our vast, centralized systems of data and information, we have to ask ourselves, are we actually building indestructible monuments to our knowledge, or are we just creating bigger, more perfect targets?